So as we said, this thing really needs to be reworked here, and so I've added a couple of tools to my repertoire. Hacksaw and a sharp knife. Now I've seen people in nurseries, they actually use machetes to chop these things apart, like to chop Cymbidiums apart like this before they repot them. But I'd be in trouble if I use this knife with my wife, and so we're going to use the hacksaw from the garage. I wiped it with a little rubbing alcohol, and so now we're going to cut into the roots of this. A tip here is that these roots, when you have to cut into the root ball, they cut better when the plant is dry. So I'm going to cut it apart when it's dry. After I cut it into pieces, I'm going to soak those pieces, and then it will be more pliable and I can work it into the pot. So here we go. We're going to start cutting this thing. I have already chosen the avenue that I want to go through in the middle. And so hang on. Here we go. I'm going to pull this thing apart. Here's one section, here's two sections, here's the third section. And those are the three pieces that I want to get out of all of this. And here's how I'm going to do it. Taking the pruner, starting at the bottom, and just cutting your way through it. I want to give you a close-up of how to take this old pseudo bulb off. So here's two sections of new growth right here, and then I got this old guy hanging around. And so here's what we do. You just separate the two, and you need to be tough. And you get rid of that, take your pruners, make a nice cut there. And now we can get rid of all of this stuff on the inside, and look at there, there's some more of that scale. I'm not worried about it. We'll take care of that when we're done. And making sure that we're not working on any other plants here until we clean up the area, because we don't want to spread the insects. So now what I'm going to do with this is I'll go back to the sink one more time. And when I say the sink, I'm meaning I'm using a garden hose in the sink to spray this all off. These are all good roots here, so this is going to be a good section of my new plant. Over here, this is another common situation where I have a pseudobulb up here and another one down here. And so I want those to be a little bit more level. In fact, here's a nice piece of new growth. Look at how much higher that is than that. So what I have to do here is, again, pick my spot, and maybe you could soak this overnight and it would pull apart. I didn't, and so I'm going to make the cut. And there we are. And so now this one little piece here, all of these roots don't belong to that thing. And so they come out. Look at that. See that? See that? Now, there's a nice new piece of Cymbidium. That's going to grow nicely. So I'll clean that up. Here are the other two pieces, and these all look pretty good. So all I have to do is clean these up, and then when I put it together, I can put them all at the same height again, and everybody's going to live happily ever after. So it's back to the sink another time. Back from the sink, and I want to show you, this is all the stuff that we took out. So this whole thing here, I mean, this is an afternoon project. So give yourself plenty of time to do it. Here's what's left. This is what we're going to pot up. And there's probably 12 or 15 pieces here. And they all look like this. A group of pseudobulbs with some roots. There's your new growth. And so we're going to pot these all up in that same pot. All of this stuff, potting up in the new pot, I made a rookie mistake here, and that is this pot's way too big for this. You want to have a snug fit, and all of those roots that we took off, this pot here would be way too big. So I'm going to go to this pot right here. Now the other thing about the pot, choosing pot size and all of that for Cymbidiums, I like to have a tall profile whenever possible because roots grow better vertically. But more importantly is we drill holes in the side of our pot, and there's also holes in the bottom of this pot, and that's for good airflow. And when you're growing in these leca pebbles like this, they'll never pack down or decompose, so you'll always have good airflow to the roots. So let's start potting these things up in here. And what I want to do is, I put these all together now, pretty much how I want to have them in the pot. And how I chose that was that I want to have any new growth. If I see any new growth, that has to be to the outside. And so I'm going to put these all in the pot. And now I want to have them equally distant apart. And so you might want to get help with this in potting all of these up because you'd like to have it nice and even. And so the first thing I'm going to do is put pebbles right down into the center so that there's pebbles in between the growth sections. Good. Got the centering. Now I'm going to add pebbles around the outside. I'm potting these rather deep because, again, with stones, I like to pot deep for stability. And secondly, is these stones will never rot or decay, so I don't have to worry about the top of my plant rotting off with this. So there we are with all of the sections in here. And then the final thing we do, taking our hammer and being pretty aggressive here, packing all those pebbles down around the outside of the pot. Everything's standing up nice and straight. Finally, we're done repotting our plant. It's all set up, ready to go. This was a lot of work. It took about 2 hours to do this, but the plant's happy. I'm happy. I think we're going to have a great growing season this summer and some big blooms next winter. There's 2 things I want to tell you about though before we go. One is you'll recall that we saw some insects down on the pseudobulbs with this. You're bound to get insects with your plants. It's not a big deal. We got rid of about 90% of them just by cleaning up the plant, but we do want to get rid of them. So what we're going to use is neem oil, and I use 2 tablespoons per quart with a little drop of dish soap in there so that you can mix the oil in the water, and then I spray it on top of the plant, or you can water the plant with it, and I do that I do that 3 times at weekly intervals. The second thing is I use KLN in place of nutrients because I want to give the roots a boost. And so for the first 3 or 4 waterings, I'm going to use KLN in place of nutrients. If the plant happens to get rained on, and I hope it does, it'll flush the system out and everything will be fine. I'll just add KLN at my next watering. So there we go. The plant's sitting in its narrow saucer and it's happy. I'm happy. We're going to have a great growth season and some beautiful blooms next winter. I promise.